Welcome to the podcast, OnlyRoofers podcast. I'm Vince Lefton. I'm here with Nick Branon. Nick Branon from Hero Roofing out of Atlanta.
Yes, sir.
Cummins area. So, Nick, tell us a little about yourself.
I'm actually started my roofing company November 2018.
Nice.
Me and my father came into business together, so I own half the business with him. I'm the CEO. Before roofing, I was bartending. I used to do MMA, kickboxing, and so I liked the sales side of bartending, definitely not the hours and the structure for the family. And so roofing's been a huge change, and it's been great.
Was your dad in roofing before this, or both of you were?
No, so he actually did HVAC.
Okay.
So he did sheet metal commercial HVAC for like 25 years. Just growing up, I watched him, bust his body up, work long hours, things like that. And I was working for the roofing company first, and he was one of those people motivating me to open my own business. So I'm like, hey, come on with me, let's do it together.
Nice. That's really cool. I kind of wish I could work with my father. My dad's 72. He's been in the food industry for a long time, so it'd be hard for him to come over.
Yeah.
But
it's a unique partnership. It's got pros and cons, of course. Working with family can always have those struggles, but it goes really well. He handles his side of the business really well, and I handle it, more the sales side.
So let's talk about that, because family business is something that's kind of intriguing, right? People like the idea of working with their family, but there are some drawbacks, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the pros and the cons of that. Like, what are some of the things that, obviously we're not talking about dad here, but what are the cons of a business owner thinking about getting into business with their parent or their brother or so on, family business kind of structure?
I would think the biggest thing is the comfortability, because I think there's been times throughout the couple of years where there's something I want to bring up to my father, or maybe him in towards me, and then it could be something I'm doing wrong or something he's doing wrong or something we both want to improve on. It's just that uncomfortability of hey, dude, do this, versus if it's someone who's not related to me, it's very cut and dry, and you can have that conversation a lot easier. So it's kind of getting past the emotions with family, I think.
So you check the relationship at the door, right?
Right.
We're son and father outside the business door, and inside the door we're partners.
Yeah,
is that really what it is? Nothing's personal.
Improve that. No, there's still a lot of. We have a very strong family culture.
Right.
We even have another sales rep works for it, and both his uncles work for us as well. So we have a lot of family culture. So but it's just kind of getting over that emotion and being kind of comfortable with it, and knowing when we are business partners as well.
Right.
Not just father and son, and to the staff under us, that's what they look at. They look at hey, these are the owners, operators, CEO and CFO. They're not looking at father and son.
All right. So what happens when conflict happens? You have your yes, he's no. What happens? Who wins?
Usually we just kind of got to solve it out. We'll go to lunch.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Kind of break it down. Yeah. It always just depends. We've kind of been on the same page with things
for the
most time. And if we disagree, there's been things he's wanted to do and I kind of disagreed on it, and I'm all right, well, let's go ahead and try it out.
Right.
And then it didn't work. We cut it. Same thing. There's been stuff I want to do, and he's like, I don't know about that. And we try it. Either it works or it doesn't, and then we'll pull it. But at least that way we're kind of hearing each other's.
Right. So after 3 years working with your father, building a business from the ground up, it sounds like, right?
Right.
In a pretty rough market, right? You don't got a lot of storms. You're doing retail 50-50. What's your best advice? Maybe someone looking into getting into it with their father, or what? Just communication? Is it is it structure? What would be really that one point that
Yeah, I would definitely say draw it all out exactly what you expect from each other. From day one, know what your expectations are of each other, and make sure you are able to have those tough conversations with each other too. And know that hey, when you have these types of conversations, we don't want emotion involved. We don't. Right. It's past. The relationship is father and son, or could be brothers. I know I got a friend of mine. He owns a roofing company in Cincinnati. It's 3 brothers that own the company together. Gotcha. I know he has a lot of conflicts and stuff like that, getting over with family, and if one brother's not working as hard as the other, and they're trying to match, so I would just say, kind of knowing your expectations going into it, and then knowing, making sure that y'all both have the same goals, because me and my father are different in age, right? What's his goals versus what's mine. And then what's the goals for the company? And
is your father enjoying working with his son? And
I think he loves it. Yeah, I think that's one reason. Because when we first started business, 2 months in, he's like, "I'm gonna help you get set up. I'm gonna help you get going. I'm gonna be out." And I'm like, "Bro, it's we're going to year 4. And then he's like, "I want to keep working. I love it." So and everybody loves having him around. And he brings a sense of one, of course, maturity, but he also brings wisdom, because he did do construction, even though it's HVAC. So he just brings in stuff that, you wouldn't think about, or maybe it could be a different perspective. He's able to give a lot of the guys under us insight.
What's your niche? What makes you guys different? What did you, I know a lot of roofers out of Georgia, Atlanta metro area. I know it's not a huge storm area. So what makes you guys different? What have you sort of, as a new company 3-4 years in,
right.
What you do?
Yeah, we've grown fast, and we've started to dominate our market, and I think it's really based on just how strong we branded in our community.
Right.
And, we've adapted our culture. We can't be called Hero Roofing and be
not a hero.
Not take advantage of people, right? So that's kind of the reason we came into business, is kind of change the persona in the industry, do right by the homeowners. So our slogan's like "Your Roof Hero." So we just try to honor that from the office manager, to the sales rep to production. Everybody's on the same page with our culture.
Right.
And we do it, and we try to be involved in the community as much as we can.
That's really.
I think we just have a strong brand. And this industry, it's getting more and more saturated every year. So you have to have a strong brand.
Was your father in the same area, meaning his HVAC business? Was that in?
He's always worked Metro Atlanta as well.
Gotcha. So he had a nice base of also contacts, things like that.
Right.
So that helped.
Yeah, we both came into it having a network already,
Nice.
And a lot of guys that work for us or came on with us since they've started, they have a strong network, and that's been that's helped us be successful.
So as guys getting into this industry, maybe let's call it fringe construction background, right? HVAC or sales background. What are things that you think are places where people can bob and weave around the curves of a business, right? There's always those moments where things don't go right and you got to move around them and so on and so forth. As a new guy getting into the business, what are some of those things that you guys found, or some things that you can give some tips or things like that they can look out for?
Yeah, I would say starting out, you always want to start out with strong processes. A lot of guys just wing it, they don't have a good plan, and then as they get going, then they start implementing things. Luckily, I had to work for another roofing company first, so I was able to right away, because I worked for a company that didn't have a CRM, and they implemented it while I worked there, and that was kind of a nightmare. So day one, I was like, I'm gonna have a CRM. We're gonna go ahead and get set up on, with QuickBooks. Pretty much have every and have a plan and a process for what you're gonna do.
A sales process, a production process,
exactly.
so on and so forth.
And of course, as you grow, you have to change that.
Yeah, you got to tweak it.
You got to perfect it and things like that. But just kind of having a process instead of winging it, because you go out there and you knock doors, you get your roof sold, and you're like, all right, what do I got to do? Or you're driving around in your truck scratching down people's names and numbers, forgetting to call back clients, things like that.
How do you train people in that process?
With us, we got a little bit bigger, so we'd actually have a training division. We have guys that train, but starting out, you definitely want everybody to be on the same mindset as you when you bring on a new person. So I definitely, when you have your processes, have them come up on the same way. I think in this industry, a lot of sales reps may come from other companies, but I've always learned it's nice to hire someone who wasn't in the industry, and you can train them just the way you want.
There's pros and cons to all that, right? It's great. I constantly teach them ABCs, right? And not just, bro, this is how we sell our products, how we're different.
This is why we do it.
Right.
I've been doing it this way.
There's pros and cons to both, So I agree a lot in our side. I'm a public adjuster on our side. I like the idea of having people who had experience, but at the same time, I got to sometimes take away the brainwash stuff of, if they were on the insurance side, I got to scrub away the dirt, clean them up, and put them back out there, or do I get a clean slate and I create a great product for myself? There is a give and take.
Right. Yeah, we had an employee come to us, and he just came from State Farm. So he was an insurance adjuster, and he was going to do in-house supplements and sales for us. And he was just like, oh, I'm not going to supplement for this. They're not going to pay for it. Or I'm not going to do this. And so it was like, well, you don't work for State Farm anymore. This is kind of different.
You got to figure out how to work it on our side.
You're working for profit, and you're working to take care of the client and make sure things get paid.
It's hard sometimes. Sometimes it's that saying of old dog, it's hard to learn new tricks.
Right.
Sometimes it is hard. I've done both ways, and it sometimes just gets difficult. Just to end off, one last thing that for any company, one thing, if whether it's startups, new companies, what's one thing you would leave off with our audience of a great tip, trick, whatever it may be, advice? What would you leave for them?
Yeah, I would just say what I've learned, or what I've seen a lot in this roofing industry, is a lot of guys, they only focus on one niche to create business. You got companies that are really great at door knocking. That's all they do. You got companies that are really good social media or SEO, whatever it is. I think you want to focus on every avenue stream that you can to generate leads. Whether that's asking for referrals, like we just got out of that keynote with Lenny. He was talking about that referral list. So whether it's referrals, past clients, knocking doors, being on SEO, being on social media, you want to hit every avenue stream of business you can. Hard marketing, direct mailers. I think that's the best thing. Like when you first start your business, you want to market first, and once you are marketing, you start getting jobs. Then you want to work on your branding and start branding into your community.
That's amazing. So I really appreciate you having you on, Nick.
Yeah.
And guys, tune into our next Only Roofers podcast. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the podcast platforms. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.